All right. Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Amy Nelson, and we're going to talk today about seasonal allergies because, oh my gosh, I've been struggling with that all week, and I wonder if you have too. I'm here in Austin, Texas, and of course, we are in perpetual springtime all the time in Austin, Texas, but particularly now, I think ragweed is going crazy. Like the grasses are all kind of really dry and kind of being very dusty, and all of that is really kind of being a thing right now. And every time we get a rainstorm in Austin, then it just blossoms and there's more blooms. And here we never really get a freeze. I mean, maybe we get a freeze in the winter for a couple of days, but let's not think about that. Let's just think about how to get through our allergies. And I really love understanding the allergic reaction, or the seasonal allergic reaction. We'll kind of preface that. We're not talking about peanut allergies and stuff like that right now. We're talking about the annoying allergies that create itchy eyes, watery eyes, postnasal drip, runny nose, clearing of your throat, coughing. Sometimes that can start involving the lungs, sinus infection, dizziness, gosh, you name it, right? Like, you kind of know, you've felt that before. Sneezing, coughing, all that kind of stuff, right? So, yeah, we want to understand our body from the aspect of, okay, how do I balance this out? And we're familiar with all of the over-the-counter medications that block histamine at its receptor, and those are useful, like your good old Benadryls and your, Allegra and Zyrtec. I can't, you know what they are. Like, you've probably seen them at, whatever store you go to. So those are great. I mean, but they kind of, a lot of times will lose their kind of effectiveness. And we say they work until they won't, right? Because your body, if there's still a storm brewing in the body, it just upregulates that receptor. So a lot of times that makes it so you still have a reaction eventually when the body changes its receptor. And then remember that, like, a lot of those medications you can't use with certain cardiac meds or certain psych meds, right? So always be very mindful of that, because I know they're over the counter, but there are some caveats to that. So if you are taking other medications, that really should be explained to you, okay? So I want to talk about ways that you can support your body with the histamine clearance pathway. And this is kind of fascinating to me because there are some genetics involved. Some people really, put together the enzymes and run the enzymes really slowly based upon their genes, and that might be why some people have they're more prone to seasonal allergies than others. Other people will tell you, like, oh my gosh, I was here in Austin for 7 years. There's always this kind of like word on the street is that if you're here in Austin by about year 5 or so, you're going to have allergies. And I mean, that's a good observation, but it kind of means that maybe the inflammation catches up with you. Remember, we do age as well, and your body doesn't know how old you are, though. And so if we age, it's kind of an accumulation of toxicity and the body getting more and more behind with that. And of course, time, which, I think about this and say, my messy house, right? And I really can only handle a messy house for a couple of days before I have to just buckle down, and it's my priority now, right? But let's say I'm, I don't know, living with several people and they're messy. Or animals, right? Or something like that. And so, like, pets and people, and they don't clean up after themselves. After a while, I'm probably going to get super fussy. Think of that as your liver. That scenario is your liver. Your liver is like, okay, this mess, that mess, this mess, that mess, and no one else cleans up after themselves. Your liver is going to be like, wait, okay, really? Think about that reaction that you have in that scenario where you really, have to tell the world around you to start doing some chores and really, get a chore list going, and we get that straightened out. Or, animals too need a schedule, and, My cats are outdoor indoor for a reason because I'm kind of tired of it, and they're happy, they're fine, don't worry. But it kind of slows down the chore list that I have to contend with. So think of that as your liver, right? Your liver is this place where it has to really detox and it has to do all this stuff. Now, let's say, and what does the liver need? It needs a squeaky clean GI tract, right? We've talked about this before in other videos, where you want your digestive system to be the place of nutrient absorption and wonderful things, and not the place of inflammation. And hello, standard America. We kind of have this situation where we've got an inflammatory diet, we got a lot of toxins, we got a really weird food list, you know, consisting of MSG and aspartame and, you know, red dye 40 and pesticides and herbicides and preservatives and artificial sweeteners and you name it, right? So the liver is like, okay, I have to detox that, thanks a lot. And then, by the way, the GI system is now inflamed, because if we have these things that push especially the IgG and the IgA, well, and the IgE reaction in the bowel, we call that leaky gut. So now, let's say, especially, we've got a lot of IgG and IgA reaction in the bowel. What do they like to do? Well, they push mucus, right? And upstairs, where we are trying to clear mucus, is that going to be a problem? Yeah, I always tell people, if I want a sinus infection, I will eat dairy during cedar season. Boom. You know, we can do that if you want me to. I don't want to do that, but I have learned that, and I just, you know, that dairy reaction increases IgG and IgA, that increases your ability to clear mucus. So if your poor little sinuses are inflamed with that same reaction, then that mucus is not going to go anywhere. And when things like that, stagnation hits, then we start to create infection, right? Then that's a sinus infection. Or if it really goes south to the lungs, then that's going to be your good old bronchitis and your pneumonias and stuff like that. And by the way, would that make it harder to deal with COVID? Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Absolutely it would. So what we want to do is really keep the bowel healthy. So during especially your seasons, you know, maybe lay off the alcohol a little bit, maybe lay off the ice cream and the pastas and the, you know, cream cheeses and the, you know, mac and cheese. And, you know, so it's like, you know, you want to understand those foods that create that inflammation. For most people, it's gluten and dairy. It is. And so maybe you're eating healthier. Maybe you're doing more paleo on that in that time frame, right? Make sure you're eating foods that give you nourishment and not foods that give you chores, like especially your liver. Your liver wants nourishment, not chores to detox, you know? So you're kind of giving your system a break with things. And I think that is a fair thing for you to understand with your body, because if it's just, oh, by year 5, well, by year 5 of, I don't know, maybe you'd go out and drink alcohol 4 or 5 times a week, or 2 or 3 times a week even, and we go out and eat, you know, I mean, I live here too, so I like a good breakfast taco, but I do know that, okay, is there a lot of health in that breakfast taco? Not really. Or I really like a lot of tacos, right? So it's like, tacos are fun. But we want to make sure that it's not our main staple. Like, yeah, you're going out in a minimal way. You are cooking food and eating healthy food. And mind you, there's great places that serve healthy food. Here in Austin, we're a little bit spoiled because, I mean, I can go to Soup Peddler and have a healthy lunch. I can go to, my favorites are like Nancy's Sky Garden, Honest Mary's, Kava. You know what? Last night for dinner we had Chipotle, and I was able to go get a nice healthy salad at Chipotle. Did I get a burrito for my son? Yeah, but at least I get to choose this. And I mean, even us eating unhealthy, we have better options, you know? Now, if you're in a city where it's a little bit, you know, that stuff hasn't really taken hold yet, then honestly, like where I live, I can go to the cute little restaurant. It's kind of a mom and pop place. I can get a nice, my favorite is like a pork chop with steamed broccoli. I love that. And that's gluten-free, dairy-free. And then I have a nice salad And, you know, olive oil and vinegar, or like a red wine and vinegar types, you know, dressing, those kind of thing, vinaigrettes, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Those are great. Like, that's actually not bad at all. So, I mean, if you are even at like a small town restaurant that knows how to cook, you're fine. You're fine. You're going to be fine. And do I sometimes have to order off menu a little bit? Yeah, I usually just make friends with the server. And then they're like, oh yeah, we could do that. And I just tell them, hey, look, I don't really eat gluten and dairy. Is that okay? Oh yeah, you know, I mean, you just make a friend and like communicate your needs, and that it really works. I mean, and I, you know, I have a family that live in really small towns, and we make it work, and it's fine. Don't be scared. You can do it. So anyway, eat clean during especially eat clean all the time, but especially during your little allergy season. If you kind of know ragweed's a thing and you have it scheduled, then that's really important to eat clean. Extra important. Now, let's talk about histamine and how it clears. There's interesting little pathways. Like, let's first talk about the DAO. Diamine oxidase is an enzyme that clears histamine. It lives like everywhere, man. It lives in the tissues. Oh, I think there's some in the liver too. Yeah, so diamine oxidase floats around, and it basically runs to clear a lot of stuff, but we'll talk about it in relationship to histamine. So it needs cofactors, and back in the day, we did have a product. Oh, it's up there on the shelf. You don't need to see it, but it's like just DAO. So you can take DAO. I think it's a glandular, and it probably comes from some type of kidney. So there's DAO in the kidney. So a lot of the products out there that are just straight up DAO will be like that. You will have people who will just take DAO and see how it feels. Now, way back in the day, we would give it, and it would be mixed results. So it would be like, some people would be, oh yeah, that helped me a lot with my, you know, vestibular migraine, or my, you know, seasonal whatever. But some people just, it didn't help at all, you know. So I'll be honest, it's like, it was a mixed bag. Now, we study then cofactors that go into it. In fact, let me see here. Yeah, let's look here. Oh, good. Oh, I did have it. So Science for Health has this one, Histogest DAO. That is a, porcine kidney extract, 4.2 milligrams, which comes out to about the activity of 20,000 HDU of the histamine dioxide. These are just like concentrations, right? So this works really well, and you basically kind of take it once a day. I don't think you need to take it with or without food. I mean, it doesn't matter. But a lot of times you're going to work to clear up somebody's symptom. So maybe that's some sort of vertigo, or some sort of like really bad, you know, upper respiratory thing. Now, caveat, the other people who work with histamine clearance have a histamine issue going on in the bowel. And maybe that's a talk for another day, but a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about is applicable in that situation. So you can do all of this for the histamine people, for if they're having, they're going to talk about, like, if I eat a histamine rich food, I'm going to have upper GI complaints. That would be reflux, it would be pain, it would be bloating, it would be something like that. Nausea, you know, it might be more upper GI issues. It could be any of the number of IBS issues, right? But think about that. This all applies, but think about if that is happening for that person and they are on a low histamine diet, they probably have a flora problem in the upper GI and in the esophagus and even in the first part of the small intestine, right? They have troubles with flora up there. You're really that's really what you're after. You're after to stabilize the flora. And this actually, so this is from Seeking Health. This is called Probiota Histamine X. These have been studied. There are certain lines of probiotics that have organized themselves to reduce histamine. And so you would do this for both the person who's got an upper respiratory or seasonal allergy histamine reaction and your gut related histamine people. Okay. So, probiotics help us stabilize histamine. The enzyme DAO helps us stabilize histamine. Sometimes we use the DAO plus its cofactors. So there's two different formulas. There's, oh, and where did I have that one? I think come prepared. I thought I did come prepared, but there's one, I think it's called Histamine Digest. So there will be certain kind of cofactors with the DIO that help that. So just know that you might start with DIO and then products that have the cofactors with the DIO and see, what mileage do we get out of that. A lot of times now, remember, we are not a linear algebra problem, right? We're not linear algebra. We are actually pretty complex. We've got a multitude of things playing together at any one time, right? So is it shocking that just giving one capsule of DIO doesn't cure everything? No. In fact, if you think about the Zyrtex and stuff, yeah, that one capsule does eliminate the symptom, but it doesn't cure anything. It usually just takes away the symptom. It makes it so you're not feeling it. We call it taking the batteries out of the smoke detector. So is it kind of a problem in a larger scenario? Yeah. And genetically, when we run those genetic reports, we will see that there are like mutations in the ability to make DIO. So that gives us, like, some people make DIO very slowly. Would they have issues with clearing histamine slowly? Because the second step, you have DIO, and then your second kind of step is HNMT. So histamine N-methyltransferase. So you actually, this is another enzyme that operates, it needs a methyl group. So you have to use methylfolate, methylated B12. You need a methyl donor to run that. So let's say you were just focusing on DIO, but you also were methylation depleted. Yeah, that's the second step, right? So it might have been you've gotten some results, but not full resolution, or it maybe didn't work at all, or whatever, because maybe your little perfect harmony would have been DIO plus methylfolate, So you're going to think about it in that way in the tissue. So you need to support DIO, you need to support with methylation. I should have just showed you the methyl, well, you know what methylfolate looks like. It's in a lot of those active B complexes, right? Methyl tetrahydrofolate, methylated B12. Sometimes you'll see SAMe being in a lot of those. SAMe was our kind of like original understood methyl donor. Sometimes you'll read about it and it's like the best methyl donor is SAMe. Well, okay. I mean, they donate methyl groups in different ways, okay? So it's kind of interesting in that way. So you'll look at those two. And then the other thing, so let's look at actually, just before we get into the last glutathione, one of my favorite topics, let's talk about actually what we call mast cell stabilization. So remember, your little immune cells will dump out histamine, right? And they're a little trigger happy sometimes to do that. So if they've had a lot of response to, let me grab these things here. If they've had a lot of response and a lot of stimulation, a lot of immune signaling to dump the histamine lickety-split, they're going to want to do that, right? So you would want to understand what we call mast cell stabilization. And there's where these products come into play. You've got your little dehists. This is the bottle of dehist. You are going to see here stinging nettles, bromelain, N-acetylcysteine, quercetin, vitamin C. All those guys, especially nettles, you can go read about nettle tea and things like that. They really do a great job at stabilizing the mast cells from dumping the histamine, which is super nice because then, it's the other layer. So remember, we're not linear math problems. Maybe you need DIO, maybe you're slow to put DIO together. Usually with your person, you ask about like the family history of seasonal allergies, and usually it's like kiddos got it, dads got it, uncles have, or I'm just randomly naming people, but like you'll have a family situation going on there. For my son has more allergies than I do. I remember my brother always had, hay fever and stuff like that. So a lot of times you just get different alleles too. So it doesn't like every single person in the family gets it, but you might have certain family members get it worse than the others. They probably make DIO differently than I did. So, dehist and these guys do have a loading dose. So a lot of times you will see like 2 or 3 capsules twice a day for a couple of days, and then you back it down. That's what I did. I was not doing well like yesterday or Monday. And for me, my allergies really present with like just me just wanting to stare off into space. Like I'm very spacey and very like, bleh. So I will do a loading dose of dehist. And then usually by the afternoon, I've kind of forgotten that that's a problem. So that's how I dose my things, is like, oh, I don't have to do that. I forgot it's a problem. And then I realize, oh, you know, I mean, maybe I could do dehist for probably about a week here, because you don't want to chase your tail too much. You want to just, sometimes you want to just do the loading dose, get ahead of it, and not have problems, you know? So that's why I like this blister pack for the dehist too, because I'll do the loading dose all the time. Now, let's see here. Yeah, you're going to see various, I pulled this one. This is Histamine Scavenger by PHP. There's also, gosh, Numedica's got a good one, Seasonal Shield. You know, so you'll see a lot of these guys that have maybe a loading dose situation. But in these formulas, you will see N-acetylcysteine being the star of the show. Why is that? Because N-acetylcysteine is the rate-limiting step for my favorite thing, glutathione, right? So glutathione... Oh, that's this guy. And let's see here who I've got. Oh, I guess I pulled this one. Here's a packet of glutathione. Tastes like watermelon. There's capsules of glutathione. There's bottles of glutathione. Liposomal glutathione. And this is kind of interesting because I think what I usually... I'm probably wrong about this because I have been saying like it helps us clear histamine. It doesn't help us directly clear histamine. It helps us clear the histamine reactive oxidative problem that occurs. So remember, we are blaming histamine, but we do then have a lot of reactive oxidative issues that go on with that inflammation. That is just as important, if not more important, to clear than histamine itself. So it's like, because, you know, the histamine pathway in biochemistry is definitely DAO and HNMT, but the other reactive oxidative problem from that inflammation is glutathione. So glutathione is your major thing that helps you with your oxidative stress. Do you need glutathione support pretty regularly? Sometimes. It depends on your choices, right? I probably really, I support NSC. It's one of my main multivitamins. My multivitamin is, I kind of customize my own situation, because you want to support things that help your body clean up, right? So N-acetylcysteine, a lot of times I'll do that dehist and then I'll carry on with NAC, which I thought, oh, here's one. Here's an NAC. You'll see it like this, called NAC, in different concentrations, depending on what you need. I love N-acetylcysteine. It thins the mucus. It's one of my main things for vertigo. It's one of the main situations to support any kind of like heavy mucus situation. So N-acetylcysteine thins mucus, and it's the main driving factor for the creation of glutathione. Now, can you just take glutathione? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's expensive. I mean, $60 a bottle versus, I don't know, $20 for a small bottle of N-acetylcysteine. So you will often kind of do little courses of glutathione. It's usually by mouth. You'll see different forms of glutathione. Like sometimes there's S-acetylglutathione, I think, and then reduced glutathione, stuff like that, you know. I am probably partial to the liposomal glutathione. I like how it just absorbs directly into the mucosa in your mouth and it gets into your system. So, I like, if things were really, really, really bad, I would do a big dose of glutathione, liposomal glutathione at about like 400 to 500 milligrams 2 or 3 times a day for a couple of days, maybe even a week. And then I back it down to using then N-acetylcysteine. I might use, if things are super duper bad, you might do glutathione with your loading dose of your dehist. And sure, the DAO and the HNMT support, right? So that's like, say you are like dizzy and just can't get out of bed, right? You might go for all of that. If there's, you know, some level of compensation going on that you are doing great, maybe you just do the glutathione, maybe you just do the NAC, maybe you just do the dehist. That's where you kind of work it out with somebody. But yeah, those are actually all really important things to work with, because you are not just like, hey, I'm blocking the receptor. I'm going to really understand, like, maybe my body needs this in different times in different ways. And then if you can, you know, start really cleaning up your act Because really what you know is that, you know, as we age, we just come to different conclusions. Like I can't have pizza. I don't like pizza. I don't care about pizza. Same with alcohol. Don't care about alcohol. I really don't. I mean, it's hard on my body. You know, I don't have a problem with it, but it's really hard on my system. It, you know, is really not good for me. So I make choices now that are based upon what my body needs. And, you know, I guess that happens maybe in your 40s. I don't know. I mean, in my 20s and 30s, you know, you don't think about that because you're just, you know, you're in a different mind space. But like when you're aging and you realize your body is adapting to some stuff and you just feel better in a different way, then you make a different commitment to your choices. And that's not to shame anybody for falling off the wagon and having some beer and pizza. I mean, I get you, but you know what? The next day, if your GI is inflamed and you have a migraine and you're dizzy and all of it, I think you should trace it back to those choices so you can recalibrate, right? I think we live in a world where we kind of pathologize stuff a lot and we start thinking I'm broken. So I have a lot of people who are like if you came in with a migraine, we would hunt down the cause, right? And we wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, you're such a broken person. You have a migraine all the time. You know, it's like you don't have this disorder. It comes from something, you know, and it's really okay to hunt that down so you can stabilize it because your bigger picture is like, I want to live a really great life full of like fun and thriving and stuff. And if I'm feeling terrible and I can't function super well, then that impacts stuff, right? So you want to understand the owner's manual for your body and know that like these certain foods get me here. And you know, a lot of times it's genetics too. Like I work with a lot of people who have blood sugar issues and cholesterol issues, and yeah, that's the family story, but how is it the family story? And how does the family story get impacted by the environment? Those are super important questions because then you can, you know, like you can make choices that are different. I mean, I'm Norwegian and like my diet, my body would love just a fish and vegetable diet. And I do that. I try really, really hard to do that. And now I like fish. Even compared to like 5 years ago, like I probably didn't like fish as much, but I gave it a chance and I learned. And yes, I've overcooked a ton of fish and I've, you know, I learned from my mistakes, but now I think I can cook a decent fish fillet of some, like the other day I had swordfish and it was good. I really liked it. And I just learned how to cook it. I gave it a chance. I told myself that's what my body likes. And then when I eat like that, my cholesterol is beautiful. I feel really good. My brain works, all of that, you know? So, you know, just commit to yourself. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess. Because that does show up in the histamine situation. So your histamine reactions, your seasonal allergies might be due to your habits. I'm not going to shame you. It's okay. It's okay. But it might be time to take inventory on your inflammatory habits that you got going on. And maybe you have to reorganize that for yourself. And that is okay. We've all been there. But that would help things work better as well. Any kind of thing you're using for your histamine stabilization. So I hope this helps you today.